y'all want to start? We all feel warmed
Let's
up?
do it.
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
go for it.
Feeling
All
warmed
right.
up.
Then we are here for the Godzilla -1 cast. May I introduce one? Aaron, you want your full name? I
Either
didn't.
one.
Got
Either
it.
one. Both of them.
One Aaron Turner, aka Groovy Kaiju, as our special guest. Thank you very
Yeah.
much for being here.
Yeah,
Yeah, of
woo!
course. Thanks for having me. I'm
No,
excited.
no worries. Yeah, I shot that email like on the way to work as a when I'd be like, you know who I know saw Godzilla -1 at the premiere. At least I saw on Instagram one Groovy Kaiju, and
Hell
yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
just agree. And then of course we never introduce ourselves because we always forget. I'm Chris. This is Nick on my for the recording that's going on the left,
Hello.
and Ian at the bottom.
Hey, I'm down here. Hi.
Yeah. So yeah, we all saw it. We all saw the movie.
We sure did do that.
We
I hope we did, or else we would just be speculating.
I will say this: it got really close with Ian.
It's
Oh, yeah.
got me and Ian were really working on trying to
I-
get the timing.
like I never ever would put Chris in this position, but I so many times think, how much of it could I bullshit my way through? How much could I say? Oh, trailer woman. Oh, she looked very upset. Very distressed in that scene. What? But
But
no,
you know, I
I
would have watched this closely. I would have called you out.
but
Let me get this going actually, just to make sure I get the actor's name right.
for sure.
But yeah, so Ian, it cut really close.
Yes.
Because it started off like, yo, Godzilla -1 is only going to be in theaters for a week. I just found out. You gotta, if you're gonna watch it, go watch it.
Yes.
And he was
Yes.
planning to watch it like 2 weeks from now, I think.
And then I said, you know what? I'm just going to put myself in the mindset of myself in college. You can do anything, man. You can have enough Red Bull and do anything. So I I found this theater in La Crescenta, and it's a United Artists. It's really nice. Hey, shout out to La Crescenta. Go support your local theaters, guys. But yeah, it was great. I want to hear more about the premiere. That sounds like a way more interesting story.
I also want to hear more about the premiere. All me and Nick did was watch like D-Box seats, and that was the first time we ever did that.
How much detail would you like? Do you want to do it now? You want to do it later? Because I can go deep.
I feel like it's a good place to start because like we like the context whenever we watch one of these things because we feel like that influences a lot more like of how you watch the movie, for better and for worse. So like no, take us in there, man. Like I am
cool.
I want to
I think I should start with how it all started. So I'm Groovy Kaiju. I make a lot of future funk music, and I run a monthly show in downtown LA, like a dance party thing. So a buddy of mine, their name is Jupiter. They are an editor for Game Grumps, the very popular YouTube channel, and their friend is also an editor named Michael. So Jupiter and Michael would come to the show, and then one time Michael brought a friend named Emma. And Emma came by and was like, "Oh, wow, you like Godzilla?" And I was like, "I love Godzilla." And she was like, "Oh, I work for Toho International." And I was like, "Please don't sue me." A lot of my branding is very Godzilla inspired. And she's like, no, it's fine. I'm just asking because like I'll give you a bunch of free merch because I get it all the time for working for Toho. And I was like, yes, please. And I was like, how could I like send it to you? They're like, here's my email. She's like, all right, cool. So the show happens. Wait a week or two, and then I get an email from Emma from her at Toho International. She's like, "Hey, by the way, would you like to come to the red carpet premiere of Godzilla -1?" And I was like,
shit.
Wow.
What? I was like, yes. So they put me on the guest list, and then for a whole week I was getting hyped. And Emma was like, "Yeah, make sure you wear like business formal, like X, Y, and Z." I was like, "Should I rent a suit?" And I was like, "Am I really gonna rent a like $100 suit just for Godzilla?" And I was like, "Damn right I am."
Hell yeah.
It was at the Directors Guild of America, which is like over in Hollywood. Drove up in like my suit, and I got there, and it was like what you imagine, like from the movies. Like they had the red carpet leading from all the way outside into the thing. There was a ticket for tables, and I have it's online, but I could show you maybe later on video. But I have the ticket still. It's like this long, like it's a huge rectangular ticket with like Godzilla -1 on it. It looks super cool.
Damn.
It's like with the graphic on it. It's super dope.
Yeah.
So I walk in, and it's kind of funny because I realized it's a red carpet premiere, but I think they had also like a bunch of like just hardcore Godzilla fans that were allowed to come, because like half of the crowd was like very like professional American and Japanese business people, as well as just a bunch of dudes with like their like swap meet Godzilla shirts, just like hyped.
Hell yeah. Those are my people.
Exactly. So I was walking around like, oh, this is so cool. I went with my partner, and Emma eventually found me and was like, oh, hey, like you should do some networking. And I was like, okay, what do I network for? But I ended up meeting this person. I hope I have their name right. I hope I'm not forgetting incorrectly, but their name was Quan. And they were really cool. They're like, yeah, I work with like Andrew Reynolds. I was like really big in the skate scene. I used to like tour with Travis McCoy as their photographer. Yeah. And like now I make Japanese toys for Toho. Like I guess I have like he has some like cool thing. And I regret not actually networking with them, because I was like, I've been looking into like making Groovy Kaiju toys, and I was like, I should have like got Quan's number. I was like, but I was just so hyped, like, oh wow, that's cool, man. Like, yeah, that's rad. And I also felt bad because everyone was just trying to like help me out and just like put me in a conversation with this person that like they were cool. They're like, yeah, I want to talk to you, but it was like obvious they knew everyone, and I was like just there, just like, I can't wait to see Godzilla. You know what I mean? So eventually I got some of the fancy boxed water, and then
I've never had boxed water.
Yeah. And then what was funny is that eventually like, hey, okay, it's time to watch the movie. They're bringing everyone in, and I had my water, and I saw someone that was like, to the usher, it was like, hey, y'all have popcorn? And they're like, no, this is the Directors Guild of America. What do you mean we have popcorn? This isn't like for your entertainment.
This is a movie?
You know what I mean? So that was pretty funny. And I sat down, and funnily enough, one of my other buddies, their name is Barry, they do they like do the Godzilla socials through like a agency. So I guess Toho like has them do other US socials as an agency, but they were there, so I was like, yo, Barry, what up? And it was a very random, because we know each other through the anime scene, like the anime con scene. And they work a lot of cons. So I was like, oh, what are you doing here? And then I sat next to someone, I didn't know their name, but it was very funny because they were all like working for Godzilla, obviously, but they were like losing their mind, just like, oh my god, I'm not the god, like selfies out, I'm not the Godzilla from here. And I was like, I thought I was a Godzilla fan, but it was dope. And they had the director there, and they had the lead actor. I honestly I couldn't pronounce their names if I but I'm sure we'll go into that in a little bit. But they did a Q&A after. They showed the film. They had someone from Toho. They were like their American like MC was like, yeah, oh Godzilla, this is so amazing. Like it was just getting the crowd hyped. Movie was sick. They had a bunch of like promotional graphics beforehand. And I guess we're about to talk about the movie right now. But the Q&A was cool. But the only thing I would say is that that was funny is that I could tell people were asking very complex questions about like the meaning of Godzilla and things. And the translators were just like, okay, here we go. So I remember someone asked like, oh, the director, like, oh, like, how do you think about, I'm actually a nuclear technician, and like, I think Godzilla is so important because of like this, Y, and Z. Like, how do you feel like Godzilla is important to nuclear technology today? I fumbled my words there, but nuclear technology today. And then they ended up talking about like, as they started off with like, they understood the question was about nuclear, but ended up drifting off into, and I got into Godzilla because I was born in this city in Japan. Like, you know what I mean? And I like Ghidorah. It was like, okay, cool, man. So
I practiced some questions beforehand. That's good. But man, wow. Oh, I'm sorry. Was there more?
Oh, and the last like a standout thing from the Q&A at the end, but I mean, just trying to share the premiere experience is the lead actor was like, yeah, like -1, we already premiered it out there, and this is our second premiere, if I'm not mistaken, like in the world out here in the US. And we premiered it out there. Japan, they loved it. They're super like, oh, this is such a good film, X, Y, and Z. Like, y'all did such a good job with this. And he was like, and now here in America, you guys really love Godzilla. You worship Godzilla out here.
Hell yeah.
So So that was cool. It's like to see like the
Mhm.
cultural differences and like they're like American crowds are like let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
But yeah, premiere was 10 out of 10. Would recommend if you happen to meet someone from Toho International
Right.
and offers to give you into a red carpet premiere for Godzilla.
anyone
Random.
from
Man.
Toho watches this, man. I just want to go to one. I just want to
Incredible.
be,
Yeah.
or I want a suit. I want one of the
Hell yeah.
suits
Suit to Godzilla.
that you just walk around. That's funny. That reminds me of the whole cultural thing. That reminds me of because me and Nick used to go to a lot of cons, like a lot throughout college and late high school. So we'd go to Anime Expo like almost every year for a while.
Yeah.
And we would always stop by the trigger panels. We were going back when they were stuck in like the one of the smaller rooms where they can only fit like maybe like 40 80 like 40 50 people.
Yeah.
And now they always get like that grand big hall. I always forget what Hall J or something. And they talked about how I think the first year was like Kill la Kill. Kill la Kill had just come out.
Yeah. Yeah. It just ended. It was like 2014.
Yeah. And they were talking about how like, in Japan whenever we do these cons, people are like it's very like people are very kind of calm, wait for everything to go on. It's kind of low energy. People and here in America where y'all are like super rowdy and like yelling
loud.
and it is
was
like people are
loud.
yelling, running down the aisles and going on. And they're
Yeah.
like, and we love it. We love coming to these things so much.
Yeah.
So they would bring more and more people just telling, and every year they'd be like, so we told them about how you guys act here, so you got to see it, and they grew to love that whole thing, and just
Right.
it's a different. It's
Way
like
different.
I don't even know. It's not quite. As someone who goes to a lot of metal concerts, it's not quite like that crazy, but it is. People are super into it, like, and people go
Yeah.
ham for these
Yeah.
events.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's really cool. Dude, I am both super happy for you and jealous that you got to go to that because that's so
That
cool.
sounds like once in a lifetime. That's insane.
That's
Yeah,
so rad.
Yeah, I didn't know what to expect going into it, but it definitely like exceeded those expectations and like it was cool. It wasn't as like mind-blowingly like fancy like as I thought like a Hollywood red carpet premiere would be.
Yeah.
But it was fun. It was a fun time, I'll tell you that. Like I
Yeah.
definitely would recommend, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god! Think about like what we're bringing to it coming in. We usually talk about that. I wanted to ask you, Aaron. Like, so you're super into kaiju movies. You said with the Godzilla franchise in particular. What are like your highlights from films you have seen so far? Like, what are some quintessentially like those are the ones that if you haven't seen Godzilla, these are the ones I share with people right away.
Ooh, okay.
Oh yeah, so I'm glad that you I mean if you don't mind, I'm glad you asked because honestly y'all covered my favorites.
Oh, yeah.
Final Wars is my number one because
Hell
it's
yeah.
just
That's
as
right.
y'all talked about, it is so over the top. It is hilarious. It is too much fun of a movie. It doesn't make any sense.
You're never bored. You're
never bored. Yeah.
Yes.
Everything's happening every second of that that movie.
Yeah, there is no downtime actually.
Yeah. The Russian guy is such a bad actor, but dude, their character is so cool.
Oh my god, what was the guy's name? He was an MMA fighter. Like he wasn't even
that.
Oh, what's up?
From your podcast, I learned that.
Oh yeah, he was
Damn
and
fire.
that shout out to Matt McMuscle's video on Final Wars. That's where I learned that fact and looked into it. And then I found out my friend knew that the entire time because he knew
He was
like
a huge fan
MMA
of him,
stuff.
actually.
And just oh my god. And I think the fact was like he tried to read it in Japanese. Like he really learned and tried to give it all. But they're like, no, we want you to say it in English. Like
You want you to
because
be
they just hear it and like he's a badass English MMA like American MMA fighter who wears like US flag on his shorts.
looking like Hagar,
Yeah, looking like Hagar.
He looks like Hagar, yeah.
So
Final Wars. I like what Legendary is doing, so I recommend people to watch at least the first one, the one with the Mutos, I think, where he like rips the mouth open. That's so sick.
Oh, it's so good. Oh my god, I love I know people always name the Halo scene, which is the Halo jump, which is a great, fantastic like shot.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I love the on the beach on Hawaii. I'm a sucker for the following lights like in a movie, and all the lights coming down and then going up the tail. Like
Yeah.
both surprising
Yeah.
but like satisfying to see the ray and the heat ray in that like shot.
Exactly. Yeah.
So good.
I'll probably recommend -1 now that that's out. 'Cause
Yeah.
I think I like -1 more than Shin Godzilla low key, but we can get into that a little
I
bit.
might too, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then lastly, I think it's Godzilla versus King Ghidorah, because both because it's a good movie. It's like I think the quintessential classic Godzilla film. But also, if you're an MF Doom fan, that's where a lot of the snippets come from their King Ghidorah project. So people like I watch them sometimes, and they do the meme where they like snap their fingers and point it like that's from the album cut. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like everything is number here. The monster is 0.
This movie has a lot of MF Doom, Mad Villainy references. That's crazy.
Yeah.
No, that one's a good
Yeah.
one. Ian's new to the whole Godzilla thing, which is funny because like I love monster movies so much. But Ian, just before we start talking, where do you?
Yeah.
How's your ranking so far? Because you've been on a small journey, right?
I have,
with Godzilla.
because I had only really seen classic Godzilla straight through, and then I'd seen bits and pieces of other ones before this. So, so this last month has been kind of me growing. What kind of the extremes of the franchise can be, what it could be, what it should or shouldn't be. But, I think that -1 is my favorite Godzilla movie. Now, it's jumped right to the top, man, for me.
I guess that.
I would say that it's very closely followed by Final Wars. Two completely different kinds of movie, but like both are very pleasant. I think that -1 is maybe like I'm trying to figure out how best to say it. It's just like a really good movie that has Godzilla is the way I feel about this film. Like it's like Godzilla is of course key to the story, but like the thing that works best for me is the performances and those like the dynamic between those four gentlemen, the woman who starts living with our protagonist for a while, like that stuff. He nails it. He does it. He like the director has done a great job at like building that out. I love all that stuff. So yeah.
No, absolutely. And then before we get into talking about Nick, what are some Godzilla movies you would recommend to people? Because I feel like I talk about all the time what I would do, right?
Yeah, well, I know that for a while what overlap was like because we grew up on the Heisen era, so I always recommended like Tokyo SOS because that always to me embodied both Godzilla and then also just the general direction of like live action Japanese tokusatsu films. Because SOS was the most like we're doing our Kamen Rider. We're gonna do our Power Ranger. So much so they got the director and composers for the Kamen Rider to do a Godzilla film for SOS.
And if we get another one for Final Wars and like
that kind of just wraps it all together. So those two for sure. And then third one, was legendary for a while. I think I always said before Shin Godzilla that was like my favorite Godzilla design. And also like it's weird because Legendary has some of my favorite shots in a Godzilla film. At least stuff that's the most memorable to me. But overall film, definitely the first one of Legendary. And
oh, good.
No, good.
I was gonna say I think I agree. Like the first Legendary Godzilla might still be my favorite Legendary movie. Like after thinking about it, I might do a rewatch for the next like Godzilla Cross Kong. Because there were bits and pieces I liked in Godzilla vs Kong, but there's a lot that I don't. And then there's but like the fight scene with Kong is like amazing. That shot of him going through the city, like running away from Godzilla, is awesome. I and then I'm not big on the military aspect. I've talked about that part, but I know why that exists because they fund a lot of those legendary Godzilla movies.
Yeah.
But then there's the shot of Ghidorah with like the fucking church in the foreground and a cross as he's shooting lightning, and I was like, that's just metal, man. Like I'm not gonna, I can't like hate on that.
Yeah.
That's
It's
cool.
it's the best Rodan has ever looked and been.
Oh, I love
in a
Rodan's
movie.
design. Yeah, I like how just big and like the nice like lava textures on his like wings, especially.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I 100% agree with that because I used to Rodan. He's my favorite character in Godzilla Destroy All Monsters, the video game, to play.
Yeah.
And I was like, he's just a pterodactyl. That's it. They're just.
I know he's just.
But in this movie, they're like, oh wait, they can survive lava. All right, my boy has powers now. Let's go.
Yeah.
You know,
Brazilian.
I think I've talked about it, how like in we used to go to Mexico a lot to visit family, and like Rodan is the monster behind Godzilla, like over there. It's so weird, and it's just because like it's from a South American country, so that's what we got, and we're gonna hold on to Rodan. And then like probably King Ghidorah would be like third because like of the dragon motif, but I just remember that growing up, just all the how much you would see Rodan next to Godzilla stuff over there. But all right, I think we've done good on the intro. I'm going to try to keep some semblance of structure. So let's get into the rising action for everything we knew about Godzilla -1 before going in. So I would like to start with our guest Aaron, if that's okay. Just anything you knew about it before going into the movie.
I knew it was a new Godzilla movie made in Japan. That's all I knew.
Yeah. This section is usually like way longer if it's an older movie, because like you'll have like years of stuff like I heard this, I saw scenes of this. But a lot of it's like so I'll give like an example, right? Like I only watched the first trailer, and I went, well, that's a Godzilla movie, gonna watch it. There's don't need to see anymore. I'm gonna be like surprised. But I'm curious for Nick and Ian, especially Ian, because you took a little bit, and like people were talking about this movie. At least I saw like online, like people I never associated with Godzilla too.
Oh, really? I managed to keep spoiler free. I got to enjoy it very fresh. I didn't have anything like that. I think the only thing I had heard was like people saying that this film is going all the way back to just after the war ended. I knew that. So I knew it was going to be like the late 1940s. And I think other than that, I didn't know anything else but that.
And then Nick.
Oh, nice. I mean, yeah, the trailer and then the drop of the poster, the international poster of it. And then the only like name I knew to it was the composer Naoki Sato. I was kind of surprised to see him because he does like a lot of those live action anime like scores.
Really?
So the last one he did was like the Rurouni Kenshin ones, and then before that was like the Assassination Classroom, both live action and anime. And then before that, he did mostly a lot of those like and like fair, like I keep forgetting the name. There's a term for it, but essentially like the whole like fairy like high school animes like Precure and stuff like that. So it was kind of crazy to go from something like Sailor Moon style to Godzilla. So I was like really curious. Yeah, what's he gonna do for this one? I'll be happy to talk about that one.
Yeah. Well, and then let's get into the very funnily named climax of the movie. Where so usually we do like a play-by-play of it, and that's gonna take a while if we with all of us. So I thought we would just kind of, if we want, we can go in chronological order, but really just like choose scenes that really stood out to us and talk about those. I even made a list at like God, like 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. this morning, uh, for possible thing. I for sure want to talk about the whole refuel station
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
the
Oh
first
yeah,
island.
definitely.
Okay, so there's probably the slowly finding out that he's a kamikaze pilot. Well, not even that slowly, like considering the rest of the movie. And is one who abandoned his post. Two, I will say this reminded me at my last job, I would listen to podcasts a lot while working because I was outdoors all the time and it was very boring if I didn't do stuff. So I listened to Dan Carlin's Hardcore History, specifically Supernova in the East, which is all about the Pacific like theater during World War II. And it reminded me about the section he talked about in Kamikaze Pilots, how there's not a lot of reports like going on. It's only like very recently that they've found out like things about that, like because it was very hush hush for a long time in Japan, like keeping the lockdown of their military secrets, especially around that era. But they found like pilots who had reported and wrote in journals like them being asked to become kamikaze pilots. And yeah, it was always the really young kids, the ones on the front lines, and it was that like duty for your country. You got to die for it for the war effort, and they would also send it to their families, like to convince them, and their families would be convinced, yeah, it's an all-out war, you got to do this and all that. So that amount of pressure going on before they finally asked like volunteers. And according to these journals, no one volunteered. It was zero. Like it was unprecedented. Like at the time, it was zero. And then it kind of opened up this thing of like how soldiers at the time really weren't for the just dying, just being sent as like cannon fodder.
Well, and the movie builds out that theme really well. We can talk about it in a few different scenes. Definitely, I thought it was, but like I think it's one of the older characters who actually says to our protagonist that human life is very cheap. That there's this expectation of throwing bodies at problems, going from and that continues basically throughout the movie from the war to the cutting sea mines to the expectation of people to just figure it out on your own, essentially. Like that's definitely a through line, and it's so well.
It's also like matching up kind of because they keep the government, like the Japan military and the government, like far away in this movie, except for maybe the destroyer that shows up for a bit.
Yeah, it's all very ground level.
Yeah, it's just orders on high telling you, you guys got to take care of this. We can't. We're not going to do it. We're sending you to the front, like to clean up this mess,
right? Yeah,
as opposed to cleaning up their own mess. But like, yeah, so it reminded me a lot of that. Just how there's, people, kids didn't want to do that. Like you're asking this younger generation to sacrifice their future. And it's very easy from far away. Like it's very easy to do that. So I like that conversation they have on the beach. Like I think it's one of the characters that pass away, where he tells the kid, "Hey, what I think you're doing is like I think it's the right thing. I'm not judging that call at all." As he's like mulling over it, right?
Yeah.
It's a really good scene, followed by a very surprising
Godzilla
stomping the beach.
And then Godzilla
shows up. You're like, what the fuck? There's a dinosaur on the beach
now.
It was very. I don't know how you guys reacted to that. It was a very surprising scene for me, like just how quick that was, right?
Oh yeah. I didn't think about it. I was just like, hey. This is the true protagonist,
there's our hero.
Yeah, exactly.
There's our poster boy right there.
Yeah.
And like,
Mhm.
but then the thing that grabbed me was like, he's really small. He's
Yeah,
really
yeah,
small in that scene.
Mhm.
yeah. Well, I mean,
And
it makes sense if you look at I don't know, there's like different timelines for the birth of Godzilla, but
yeah,
I mean, if I'm not mistaken, in the timeline that would have been after, like, right after the bomb had dropped. So then
yeah,
the nuclear would have hit Godzilla on the whatever per the lore of Godzilla. So
mhm,
yeah, they would have been just mutating and starting to grow. So
exactly, yeah. As
yeah,
we find out, like when he's on that island, the bomb drops like that day or
Mhm.
something,
Yeah.
because he comes back to very much after the like kind of further into the aftermath. People have already figured out how to live in like the rubble and like make food work for
yeah,
everyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so I found that like as Godzilla shows up literally as the bomb, like it's instantaneous almost.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. How do you
Mm.
guys feel about the kind of backstory that we get, like this little news clipping scene of military documents and like military map making that traces out the Pacific and this kind of development of Operation Crossroads nuclear testing at Atoll
Yeah,
and that
Bikini
kind of.
Bottom.
I was gonna say
Bikini
Bikini
Bottom.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are right though. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if you know that, Ian. Like the creator, like modeled, like that's why they're there, right? He
That's why
tried to,
Bob's a mutant. He's a Godzilla in waiting.
yeah, he's a Godzilla in
Yes,
waiting.
that's right.
But he
Oh
was
my!
like a big marine biologist, like before making cartoons.
Oh, okay.
So that
Oh
was
yeah.
like a weird thing. That was like always a theory, but it's kind of a cool thing.
That's well, my brain auto corrected it, so it must be true.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But
But I'm sorry. What was that question again?
just like, what did you guys think of that scene, that kind of informational scene,
Mm,
wherein it's essentially it's for. I guess it's for people who don't have any of the backstory of Godzilla. You need to give them something. So it's,
yeah.
oh, here's
Yeah.
some maps and nautical information, and here's actual test footage of the U.S. Nuclear arsenal.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I thought that was a really like fantastically edited scene, and it communicated great information, and it was like it reminded me of a movie from the 1940s. Actually, it's like, oh, this is okay. This is really fast paced. We've got to catch up
Mhm.
a lot of information for newcomers here, and I thought they did it really well. That's all. That's all I wanted to.
Yeah. There's
Mm.
so like with like a lot of Godzilla movies, they kind of like there's this kind of following of like the like comic book rules, right? Where you have to explain stuff as soon as it like the origin real quickly, especially when
Right.
setting up a new like Godzilla lore like this.
Mhm.
True.
But at the same time, everyone knows who Godzilla is. Godzilla's huge, so
Yes.
I liked the fast editing and like how quickly like yep, this is all the info you need.
Yep.
Dude was born from nuclear testing, and it plays very much to like the themes of the movie.
Mm.
Yep.
Plus, I am a huge sucker for those kind of.
Same.
I love like the really just crappy like military photos of like monsters in the distance or like measuring up. I feel like that just
Oh
adds
yeah.
this like level of like, oh shit, that's something. That's
Yeah.
new. That's new. That's
Yeah.
bad. Like
That
that's
was always that was always the cool thing with Legendary. They were really
yeah.
good at, especially like when they hinted even all the way from Skull Island
Mhm.
film. Sort of like they have like these. Oh, this is we're now seeing sites of Rodan and Ghidorah and
Mhm.
its other creatures. But yeah, -1, it felt like the opposite of Shin Godzilla, where this is probably the most believable the U.S. has been
Yeah.
Yeah.
because it's actual footage.
Yeah.
Well, because they did it right. Like that's absolutely what they did. Yeah,
Yeah,
as opposed to like the Shin Godzilla. Oh my god, I talk about those lines all the time.
the
Those
shot of
American
them looking
actors.
out the window.
That shot, dude. That shot's so fucking.
Hey.
I don't know if it's supposed to be comedic, but I think it's so fucking funny every time like they show up. Just all
The
three of them talking to each other, but they each get their own window out
They get
into
a
what
separate window. Yeah,
out
like
to presumably what's the White House lawn. Like
Yeah, it's the president, the vice president, and I guess the speaker of the house all standing in one room looking out.
Yeah.
It was I like that shot. It's great.
Yeah, and so that's a good. Anyone else about the island scene? Because I was going to talk about like Tokyo, Return to Tokyo in that scene.
I like that the protagonist got scared to shoot the gun.
I also like that too.
I thought that was very interesting. In which, like, again, just like I think it reinforced like you're a kamikaze pilot. Please be the fodder. You know, go to that. You know, you have to be the one that runs out and like tries to destroy the thing because you were already supposed to not be here in the first place, anyways.
Yeah.
And the fact they hesitated, I think, I don't know, it made them feel more human, which I liked. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's absolutely. Yeah, it's absolutely very human. Like, and it's a different situation, but it's asking for the same thing. Like, because the threat is immediate and there. Like, and now we're getting to the thing of you're not doing this from for a military or a government you actually haven't fully seen. You don't know who the higher ups are calling down these orders. You're doing it for the crew you just had a night with, and like they housed you, they helped repair your plane. The guy even talked to you and was like, yeah, I don't think you're doing a bad thing here.
Yeah.
And just adding that kind of way, because if it was the kamikaze thing, it kind of adds like a further layer that's not that relatable, or like you don't see how much that's affecting your protagonist. Whereas, like in that when you're on the beach with him, it's so intimate, and you're seeing all those emotions like going, and you really like, boom, like connection established with this protagonist. You know exactly kind of way, or kind of what he's going through a lot better now.
No.
Yeah.
Especially in that situation. And to the point where you're like the plane engineer yelling at him as he's hauling his dead friends' bodies.
Yeah.
Like, no, he's right too. Like he could have helped. Like, it's such a tough and good scene, and it's all after like Godzilla shows up and like stomps on this beat. Like, it's awesome. I really love that whole scene. By the way, we were talking about the D-box thing. This is my first time ever doing it. The first emotions you get with the D-box is just the plane landing, and it really does feel good because you get the little like 2 bumps as the wheels are touching like the ground. Versus Godzilla showing up and the stomps are like shaking your seat.
Yeah, you're like shaking like it was wild.
I never knew I'd be into that really gimmicky stuff because I wasn't like into 3D. I was like, oh, there's something to these chairs. I'm really digging this.
I did recommend that everyone see Scream 6 with
D-box.
Did you do D-box for Scream 6?
Amazing, you guys! I'm dying. It's amazing. Yeah.
I'm gonna see Furiosa with that thing for sure. Like,
oh yeah, that's gonna be awesome.
The only thing is they're expensive. But anyway, so let's get to returning to Tokyo. It's like few days. I don't know if they say how many days it's been since the bomb like hit.
They gave you a month, so it's
a month.
It's about 2 months afterward, I think. Excuse me.
So Nagasaki had already happened too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So this is like between the official reconstruction and then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you already get, so it's another like kind of inverse where as opposed to like seeing Tokyo destroyed in the like with Godzilla, Tokyo's already gone.
Yeah.
You get here. And that's like this really cool touch. I like oh my god, her name is in the movie Noriko's like intro with throwing him the baby.
Throwing the baby, yeah. She's running on the market.
Classic.
I loved Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, classic, throwing a baby.
Throwing the baby. I thought that was a really fun thing. That I just want to bring that up because I was kind of disappointed that she kind of became like a mother figure like immediately after. I kind of like the scrappy, like just tossing around a baby to get food and bring it back later.
Yeah.
I mean, she's caring for that. They're caring for that kid. I liked Sumiko's character. That's the one who calls out the protagonist for not dying.
Oh, the
as a-
neighbor. Yeah.
as a kamikaze pilot. I liked her kind of arc because that again, I brought up the Dan Carlin thing. That reminded me how like people at home in Japan viewed it. You know, not being in the front lines and all that. Just like you have to die for this. That's the honor, right?
Well, you definitely heard stories, and when I was watching that scene where the neighbor confronts him essentially and says, you know, you've not only dishonored us, you've caused all this by not letting yourself die, etc. And that, you know, that pressure, that's definitely historically corroborated. We know that the case that did happen to a lot of men who weren't even kamikaze, just regular soldiers who were shamed afterward for, well, if you had done your job, we would have won, etc., etc. You know. So, like, I was honestly kind of glad that the movie, like, one, gave us that, but two, didn't linger in there, because I was ready for a whole movie of everybody treating this guy like the absolute devil.
Yeah.
So I was so glad we didn't have to do that. Yeah.
No, especially as you're getting further away from the actual event, like people, like you're seeing how people have kind of like thought about this.
Yeah.
And like, you know, the craziest, worst thing in the world has just happened. So it like a lot of time to think about how do we get to that point. Yeah. And I think some very like rational like explanations. But any scene for you guys you want to talk about? Because I'm just going down a list I made. I want to make sure I open the floor.
What do you? I think in order would be the boat stuff next. He gets anything you guys talk about regarding like his mine work or the Godzilla attack on the.
Yeah, that thing was sick. That shot was so good. It was going through the water.
Yeah,
like
when they did a Jaws.
Yeah, when they did Jaws, that was sick. I was gonna say, I did like a lot how they slowly, maybe it's a bit of they did a lot of foreshadowing in the movie, but I think it was a nice foreshadowing that they were so open to working, like, even though, you know, they felt so bad about like not, you know, going through with their duty as a soldier. They then had this weird trauma thing where they were like, well, I'm just gonna work very close to death. Even in my day job, because it makes me feel like I'm committing, you know, fulfilling that duty on my own terms. You know what I mean? And they're just like, they just couldn't get over that last hump. So it was interesting to see how excited they were for the job, and you could tell it's a bit of the money, but also a bit of like, oh, I'm like doing my duty finally by like putting my life on the line. You know what I mean? By not, you know what I mean? So like this weird, I don't know.
Yeah, and it's very. No, I think you're onto something there, right? Like, I think it's very indicative of where his like mental state is, because now he views the only way I can serve my country is by being close to death, or to put myself in such like a risky position that death is always around the corner. That's the only way, because that's what I've been told to do as a kamikaze pilot. That's what people are yelling at me on the streets in Tokyo as I'm coming back. So it's kind of just, and it all coming to a head later on in the movie with him deciding to fly his plane into Godzilla and dying with the plane. Whether or not he knows that's going to work, it doesn't matter. Like, it's just to do that duty.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no,
that was pretty much what I got from that.
No, that's a great point. Like, so yeah, with the boat scene, it was kind of like, this sort of act, of him joining the boat crew, and then sort of seeing that you have these, essentially, like every person on the boat kind of like represented different views on both the government and then like where the future can go, and sort of just like general outlooks for that. I thought was really cool. The mining scene, with the gun, I thought was fantastic.
I really enjoyed that.
Yeah. The it's funny because the official song for that's called Confusion.
Oh.
Yeah. All the track names for the movie are like one word, like confusion, pain.
Oh my god, he does unscathed. What I do.
Good
Yeah.
lord.
That's how I run my shorts.
Yeah.
It's like
So
work.
no, it's called Confusion when Godzilla's like in the water. And there's sort of just like the awesome shot with the mines, and sort of like Aaron pointed out about foreshadowing. Yeah, the physical foreshadowing of the mine, and how like he's then has to see this new perspective. Oh, like if I work with others, that it can have a different outcome than what I'm convinced of.
Oh, that's
Right.
yeah. Good
Yeah.
point. Yeah.
That's pretty good. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. I didn't connect
Yeah,
that.
so then that's why, like, when the guy points out the injector seat, so it's like, oh, now, these, and that's the thing, like, they were always there. You were just told to never pull it, like, and that was
Oh,
like the thing.
Is that how that? Okay, so maybe I misread the scene. Because I viewed the hand on the seat as him like thinking about installing an ejector seat.
Mhm.
But no, is there a lot?
No,
Maybe I missed
he
it.
says, he says, like, oh yeah, this is injector lever.
Yeah.
I
But
think
then
if I'm
that's,
not,
sorry.
maybe if I'm not mistaken, I think it's just that model of plane happened to have an ejector seat.
Oh, okay.
But the older ones, they didn't even build them because they were
Didn't build
like,
them,
well,
Yeah.
you're gonna die with this plane anyway, so why build this?
Yeah. And that
Yeah.
and that like that collaborated with like what I remember from that very long Dan Carlin podcast where it's like they wouldn't build any safety features because you don't want them abandoning their post at
Their
any
posts
time.
are like, you have that risk,
Yeah. I did want to say for the Godzilla thing because it was weird because I was just talking to my buddy who I went to go see the movie with. By the way, we saw this movie with like 8 people on like a Thursday night. It was nuts. That everyone was able to make it. I had just talked about how like one of the things I really liked about Legendary's Godzilla is Godzilla moving in the water. I really like how that looks, almost like like pretty much like an alligator.
Yeah.
And with the dorsal fins coming up, and so seeing it in this movie, and good God, just how close you get to him, and seeing how it's just so terrifying. Especially like just how scary things are in the water, like how much bigger everything feels. Like, but no, really enjoyed that. I like on the boat thing. I like the dialogue with oh my god, not the scientist, the other older gentleman.
The captain?
Yeah, the captain, where he's going, well, someone has to do it, and he gives the heroic speech. Someone has to do it. We're gonna die here, and just seeing Godzilla going, all right, no, we got to change the plans. We're not gonna do it.
Yep.
That always works. I know it's like a joke that's very common, but it always works on me. The nah, fuck that type deal. But I think it also kind of matches with everything going on because it's like, well, that's not going to solve the issue. Is me dying in this moment? Like we got to figure out something. It's way more beneficial if we live and figure out something better, right?
Yeah.
But as for another disarming the mines, everything to do with Sumiko, everything to do with Koriko. Godzilla. Okay, so this is on his way to Jinza, right?
Yeah.
After the ship scene. So
And-
Nick, I know you. Oh, sorry, Ian. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, so Jinza. This is where Noriko's working, and this is where we're going to get our first land attack. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
After the beach, and he's bigger in this one.
That's something to say specifically about this scene. I'll follow your lead.
Got it. Well, I was gonna pass over to Nick because I remember Nick coming out of the theater and being like, "The Jinza scene was my favorite scene. Like, I loved everything to do with that." So, Nick, what'd you like about that?
So right off the bat, I think it because there's always the things that kind of need to happen in the Godzilla film. So one of the things that kind of always needs to happen is he attacks a city. So in this case, I think what stood out to me was this is literally like we're not even officially on Reconstruction. So this is 1950 or 1940
something around there, late 40s. Yeah.
So literally, what can you do? Like everything's like just brittle and everything's falling apart.
Yeah.
And what's cool is like soundtrack wise, this is like the most versions of Godzilla suite, because there's 3 in the film. So in the Ginza scene, the second one's played, the second version.
Okay.
So it's faster, so it's like a little bit faster. And yeah, I will say, like, what I loved about it also was just like the way they kind of moved from set piece to set piece of he's gonna swing here, he's gonna move here, and then also sort of kind of having these huge shots of like seeing just the scale of him.
Yeah.
And the constant shots of just his feet and then a person next to his foot. Like that's how big he is.
Yeah.
And that's how helpless you are, like if he's there.
It's
it's just so good.
Yeah, and it's that kind of like scale thing that brings me back to like a kid watching Godzilla for the first time. Just like he's huge. What are you supposed to do? Like what are as a kid I'm going, what is man supposed to do against a beast that big?
Tanks apparently.
Tanks are the thing. That rampage, man, the tail striking shot is so good.
Man.
The radio guys just staying there and covering the whole thing. By the way, whoever they got to read the radio in that part, he was fucking great. Like he nailed. Oh my god, he nailed the 1950s. Just quick, like, fucking reading everything. That was so cool. And
if I could cut in real quick,
absolutely.
I think I agree. The Ginza scene, I think, was maybe one of the peak of the movies. But I want to call out how good it was visually affected. Like just how the visual effects, Godzilla looked really clean. I feel like in Ginza, and in the beginning, it was like very impressive. Of like, oh, I've never seen Godzilla look like so in their element and like flowy and like I don't know, just even better than man in a suit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, he looks like he belongs in the water. Like
exactly. And I found in one other premiere nugget, I found out the director has a visual effects background. So before, like as the movie first started, he was on my laptop in cafes, just already starting the visual effects for Godzilla before we like had a script and stuff, because they wanted Godzilla to look really good from a visual effects standpoint.
So good. Yeah, we haven't even talked about the. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Wow.
Yeah, I was just saying it shows that like visual effects was a huge highlight of the movie and making these scenes look so good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we haven't even talked about Godzilla's design in here. I love him, man. Like
fantastic.
I think it's a good. There's new twists, but like it's very much like old school Godzilla. That looks like him with the head kind of coming out. It's not quite the alligator neck from Legendary, but sort of there. Kind of see it. His arms are bigger. Like his hands are like way bigger than in some of the other Godzilla movies. His fucking thunder thighs are great, but the skin reminded me not quite like Shin Godzilla's skin, but a little reminiscent. Because Shin Godzilla's skin is supposed to be reminiscent of like burn marks of victims during the atomic blast. But I will say his dorsal fins, I noticed like immediately in the movie, because again, I used to have like a marine biology background. Well, I say background, I did it in college before becoming like a writer. It's very like just coral. It looks like coral, like dead coral. Because I used to have to handle that kind of stuff. But it reminded me a lot of that. So just he very much feels like this, born of atomic energy, but still part of the Earth type deal. It's real cool. How'd you all feel about the Godzilla designs?
I liked it a lot. Shin Godzilla to me was super sick. It was like I feel like almost a complete departure of what Godzilla should look like in a positive way. This one, I feel like the director did a great job in terms of like designing Godzilla that I feel like it had bits and pieces from every Godzilla that everyone likes. You know what I mean? Like I don't like the too chunky Godzilla, but I don't like the too skinny Godzilla. There's like there's like it was like a perfect blend of all the Godzillas of what I like from each one. I wish they still had cat ears though.
I know. I missed the. I was talking about that for Final Wars. I missed the cat ears.
Yeah.
The cat ears and the thunder thighs for me. I always felt like the
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting because the brow line like reminded me of Final Wars, like the little earring.
Interesting.
See, that's
But
like it had a bit of that in there, but it didn't
Yeah.
full send on any of them too much, which I appreciated.
That's
Yeah,
true.
absolutely.
Added that kind of like anger because it's a very angry Godzilla in this one.
Yeah, definitely the most balanced. Yeah, I agree.
But you see a lot more of his eyes. Like in Final Wars, you don't get good
No.
shot of his eyes at all, except they're
Yeah.
kind of like small and beady.
Mhm.
Very more predatory. Whereas like this Godzilla, yeah, it's still front facing predator like, but it is a little bit more separate. Like, it's so good. I really like this design, man.
If anything, I think that's like my favorite. Like his back is like my favorite of all the Godzillas.
Yeah,
Just the way, just how massive and gnarly it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Not to derail from Ginza, what did y'all think of the heat ray? I think that was kind of the.
I was gonna get to that. Yeah.
Yeah, we're trying to.
So
oh my
sick.
God,
Okay.
dude, it's so good.
Okay, so I'm gonna build it up like how the seats did
anyway.
for the movie.
Mhm.
So we're in the D box seats again, brand new experience to me. Never done this before. I've kind of talked about how I'm not a big like as I've gotten older. I don't go to movie theaters too often because I kind of don't like it a lot of the times. Or I've had so many bad experiences. I'm like, I'm just gonna fucking watch at home.
Yeah.
So the seats like start tilting back and like start chugging with the as the dorsal fins are loading up. So it's like thunk, thunk, like as you're in it. And if you have it on high intensity, I'm sure everyone else in the theater can fucking hear you as you're like going. So it's but it's going with the rhythm and it's just and you're like, oh shit, this fucking Godzilla. And then just that you get the focus beam you got in like Shin Godzilla. So because we're there, and that silence right after it shoots before like the mushroom cloud, right? Like very supposed to be atomic blast.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god, it was so good. Like it was just, and then not only just the blast, right? It's like you get the wave out, but then the air sucking back in.
Yeah.
From all the air that's been. Oh, dude.
Man.
I loved it. That's me and my friend hooting and hollering like in the theater, just going, oh my god.
And that's actually when my favorite like track in the movie, and it's called Unscathed when it drops. And it's like when that's the one where like the big choir comes in.
And
then he's just and then he's just screaming while blood like rains down on him like from it is man. It's so good.
How'd you feel, Ian, having seen 4 atomic like heat rays now?
Yeah, I've seen 4 different ones.
Wow.
But I think that this one was the most like Shin Godzilla I liked because the blast intense and like an explosion going off.
Mm-hmm.
This one felt most like the atomic, but it's just like an atomic bomb. Just explicitly, this is another atomic bomb getting set off every time it does its dragon blast, where you get that big black plume of smoke with the shot of Godzilla framed by the fucked up city. It's great. It's amazing. And like that moment that I think that Nick is mentioning where the music kicks in, like, and Noriko shoves him in the alleyway.
Go for it.
Such a gut punch of a moment for the audience. If you're invested, like I was, I was like, no, he found love. No.
She's got a strong stiff arm too. Like she sends him flying.
She's like, I can take him.
She's like, listen, I've been the only one holding this baby, so
I mean,
sorry, go ahead.
And I love the train scene with Noriko dangling, doing like all that, which I in my mind it looked like practical effects. They did 2 train cars that were broken on a green screen and had that actress maybe hang around. It felt very weighty. It felt very real. I loved that.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a very much like, I know I feel like such a such a moviegoer where I'm like, how is she gonna get out of the situation? Like, so, where I'm like, oh my god, that's so bad, that's so awful. What is she gonna do?
Well, and the movie like works really well for in the regard that like when she gets in that recoil of air that you mentioned, like you're fairly confident, oh well, she's probably not gonna make it, and then it's like, oh, this movie's just gonna hit you again with like, yeah, sometimes people die unexpectedly in the aftermath of war, and it's brutal, and it's like another part of what the movie's talking about. And like, let me say this though, if the movie didn't have the ending it did, where it's like, nah, actually she's okay, I would have maybe held it against the movie a little bit, like, you piece of shit, you fucking took everything from this man. What?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's crazy because, like, well, we can talk about the ending probably later, but
Yeah.
in that sense, like, that's actually more realistic in that sense because that happened a lot of like you couldn't find them, so you assume they're dead.
That's true. This is true.
Yeah,
This,
yeah, that happens quite a bit.
Yeah.
Aaron, how'd you feel about this atomic heat ray?
Yeah. So on the topic of Noriko, I think she was my favorite actor in the movie. I think she did like the best performance in my opinion. She killed it. Heat Ray, I'm a fan of the Dragon Ball Z style Heat Ray, where it's like Godzilla's entire mouth just like, you know, like coming out, like, you know what I mean, with like fire on the side of it and stuff. But I do like these more like, you know, tiny, just like, you know, like tiny, like, because I feel like physically that's probably what would actually happen if Godzilla, it would be like this tiny ray of just
laser
concentrated energy that would then explode. So I like both of them, but yeah, my favorite's like Kamehameha style. That being said, though, the heat ray scene was wild. The fact that Noriko pushed him was like made me do mental gymnastics of like, why did you not save yourself? Everybody feels so guilty. Give him his like release of death because he's been chasing it for so long. Like, but also, why do you love him? He's treating you like so terrible. Yeah,
yeah, that's a real
like.
question.
There's just so many like layers of like, oh, why did that happen? So it's like that's like filmmaking masterpiece. Like you can't get any better than that. You know what I mean?
No,
you just can't do it better.
So yeah, but it's furthering like, no, you're better off alive. Like
exactly. It furthers that motive too, which is like there's so many layers of like both logical, emotional, psychological. There's just like so many layers of just that one push that's like the movie built up. Yeah. Director is goated. I think we could get that.
Yeah, no, he's great. Yeah. I tried looking up like too what he did before, and I wasn't too familiar with most stuff, but it looked like it was a lot of like the two big movies he was known for were about a World War II pilot. Like I think not being like dodging the kamikaze thing as well. So it felt so this was probably just very much in his wheelhouse and like and now we're gonna put Godzilla into it, like type.
Yeah. But the last heat ray point I'll make, I think this has been like the most powerful I've seen the heat ray. Because the thing about the Kamehameha style, it's more just like, you know, Muto gets boiled in half. Okay. Shin Godzilla was pretty baller. I loved how they did the back thing and like 15 came. I was like, yo, what?
So
you know what I mean? It made me feel like a kid when Darth Maul showed up in Star Wars and had two lightsabers. What?
That's twice the danger. Like, it's two. You have to worry. Or and then General Grievous with like the four.
Or then you're like, oh well, you know, this is the craziest I've ever seen in my life. Yeah, so that's how. Yeah, but this one it was single ray, but it was just like I've never the whole air suction thing. You bring up a great point. I think. You know, they brought in some actual scientists to be like, well, here's how it would really go down. Like, I feel like they must have like contracted Kyrgyzstan from YouTube or something to be like, because the animation will actually film it of like what would actually happen. Yeah.
This is
which made it all the more terrifying because it felt so much more real. Yeah.
It also gives you a great reference point for what like maybe the atomic blast was like if you weren't there. Like, this is what this was kind of having. Although it is supposed to be like a much smaller scale. And then kind of going into the themes, I mean, they do that thing where they build up Jinza. Like, it's up and coming. They're rebuilt it so fast. That's going to be the new hotspot. but kind of like we can't actually move forward from this war until we fix our own in-house like issues. Like we can pretend and all that, but it's gonna keep rearing its ugly head, like unless you take care of it. Like which goes into the town. So you had mentioned Jaws earlier, Ian.
Mm-hmm.
That town hall meeting where they're discussing how to kill.
Oh yeah.
Like it's so Jaws. I was like watching the movie. I'm going, oh, this is like my favorite fucking scene from Jaws, as well as just them talking about how to. I'm such a like how to take down Godzilla. I'm such a sucker for that stuff. Just how they're gonna kill the monster. Like I loved it in Nope. I loved it in fucking Jaws. Like this, oh, it's so good. So how'd you all feel about that town hall meeting too?
I agree with you. It has some big Jaws like vibes. I what I took away from it was I loved that they had such a nerdy answer to how to stop Godzilla by doing a science project at it. Like I love that. I love
science project
solution.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
If I hate to, so this is based on a real event. It's horrible. I kind of don't want to bring it up. But in that movie, when they did the science project, I was like, this is just like the submersible. It's a little too soon, bro. A little too soon. Like, we're gonna make Godzilla submersible real quick. So, hey, I looked at my partner and said that, and they were like, "Oh shit, you're right."
And then Godzilla will suffer the worst fate we can imagine. Oh no.
Oh no, man! You just saw on the news and went, "That's a great idea." No, but yeah, it's it's yeah, no, that timing on that, yeah, and I will say,
I could be like, I'm sure the director made it beforehand, but it was just the timing was
timing
because I watched it a month beforehand, so I was like, it was still kind of fresh-ish. So I was like, oh, you know what I mean?
Oh,
that and probably that scene was laid out so far ago, like
exactly,
that was probably one of the first things they came up with was like, well, we're gonna have to get to the scene eventually. We got to figure out how to kill this giant dinosaur.
Yes.
And then the news comes on like a month before your premiere or something.
Yeah.
But okay, so one of the big things I want to bring up with that movie is we know me, I'm all about characters, like emotions, like in stories. Just I loved everyone's questions in that movie. I thought they were so like it's weird. How do I describe this feeling? Okay, you ever been to a job and like especially early on and you're young and you don't want to ask questions to like your boss or like your supervisor because like you're scared. You don't want to seem stupid. First of all, you don't want to seem like you don't know what you're doing. And you don't want them to think you don't know what you're doing. And also you're kind of scared. You're kind of scared that they're gonna maybe snap and be like, well, you should just know that, man. Well, like, and all that kind of stuff. Or maybe I'm just digging up some unfounded fears I used to have. But but and then as you get older and you've gone through a lot of jobs or you've gone through a lot of stuff, you're like, no, I don't care how I'm gonna look. I need to ask these questions because that's gonna be a problem. Like in the future, you know what's gonna come up. That's what it reminded me of. Like just all these dudes, they've just been through war, like the war that will define like or like in their heads, this is it. This is as bad as it can possibly get. So just all those tough questions that like, you're the scientist, but we need to know like, will this work? Will this kill? I don't want to be sent on another death march or another death mission. And just a very honest, like, no, I don't know if this is gonna work. This is something brand new. Like we've never dealt with this before. It's just like everything we know from living creatures is there's no way. There's like no other creature could do it. I just really like that unsure feeling throughout. But like that glimmer of hope, that small hope in the face of like unknowable like horror. Which is kind of what Godzilla's like movies are all about if you go from the human thing of like just what are you supposed to do in all this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Before, of course, except for like movies where he's the hero, he's got to fight the monster, and that's cool
Yeah.
too. And I really dug that, and I love the scrappiness. It's so good. It's such a good, like, we're taking care of our own problems here.
Yeah, I when I was watching that scene, I definitely was thinking, and we can, I don't know if we can talk about this as like a theme a little bit because it goes through a lot of the movie, but like it's I was thinking a lot about Shin Godzilla while I was watching this one because
Yeah, same here.
Yeah.
I had in my mind like the ways that Shin Godzilla was critical of government and the ways that this movie was critical of government. And it's very different vibes. It's very this one feels less like it's hedging itself, like, oh, it's more directive in this was wrong, this was not good, this was destructive, this was dishonest, this was et cetera, et cetera. I was like really surprised
Same here.
as such an explicit take that but I then also thought like it's also maybe a reflection of who we're looking at. We're only looking at literally the lowest enlisted men or the homeless or the displaced or the war orphaned, whereas in Shin Godzilla it's all the people who are jerks making like half-assed decisions in 3. They have to walk into the different rooms to decide.
Bureaucracy, yeah.
Dude, that I told you my experience with that, like on the podcast, where like after rewatching that movie a couple times and just how you're supposed to be like frustrated with the bureaucratic procedure in Shin Godzilla for taking care of that, and it's shot like that. And just the scene, and yeah, when you get that line of dialogue, we have to go back to the room we were just in for the last scene in order to make a decision. Comes off as like comedic, like
it's very funny.
Yeah, and then this is doing the opposite, where it's like you're not building frustration with the audience. You're not supposed to. The audience is supposed to be frustrated with you. It's supposed to be hopeful, like in that future.
Yeah,
it's this scrappy like underdog thing, and. As much as I really like Shin Godzilla, and it is a different take, I think I like that feeling a lot more of just the like glimmer of hope. And maybe as I've gotten older and faced a lot of things, I'm like, yeah, man, you gotta hold on to that. You gotta do what you can.
Yeah, there's a great. I think that's what makes the great moment in the town hall meeting when one of them goes, "Well, someone's got to do it." Like, it's not at this point. Like, what else do we have? Like,
exactly.
And then also like it's also a plan to freeze him. But then instead of a big bombastic like we're gonna tie all these trains and ram him with more trains.
Which I really do love that scene.
It's sick. It is sick. When they all like collide. But yeah, like it is also this thing of we can't. Yeah, it's that theme of like we can't kill it. We can only have it dormant and then be prepared for next time. So, and that's what the war is. It's like it might happen again, but we don't know like what'll hold. Like, will they attack again or will?
Yeah.
So it's the uncertainty of it all.
We have to solve the problem now.
The problem now. Yeah. And I'm with you. I think I like this version of the scrappy like underdogs coming together more than Shin. I think just for like you said, the hopefulness, and it's not in the modern era, so it's more believable that they're that desperate like to solve it because they can't leave, like there's nowhere to go, like this is all you have. No, yeah, it was pretty awesome. It's such a great scene. It is Jaws. It is just the Jaws scene.
Which is a good scene. That's a good movie.
Yeah, the music for that's awesome. I do love that. And I think that was the thing that kind of confirmed what I was thinking, that score wise, it reminded me the most of the composers. Like, I think the biggest anime he worked on was Eureka 7, like that whole franchise.
Wow.
Oh, dang!
Music for it.
I didn't know.
Yeah, that's him. So, having that and then having like the hopeful motifs of it all, and then coming together, it felt like very much in like Eureka 7 style in that moment. So I thought that was really cool, like to see.
Interesting, man. No, yeah. Aaron, anything? What did you think of the whole town hall meeting? The plan to kill Godzilla.
I like the town hall meeting a lot. I hope I might be mixing this up, and my bad if I'm jumping forward because I remember there was a second meeting where they have a map out. But one thing I really appreciated was when the scientist dude was like, "Hey, look, like straight up, Japan has been taking human life way too cheaply.
Yeah,
we're gonna get out of this like with as many people as possible that we go in with. You know what I mean? Which I thought was like super insightful and kind of like to your point about the underdog story and like the vibe of like, hey, look, like we're not just gonna like I'm not throwing this plan together just be like, oh well, let's try and hopefully we win. Like this is like my best effort, our best effort we can possibly do to have the highest point of success, rather than just like, oh, let's just throw people in planes and like boats. You know what I mean? Which that's not for me to judge, but you know what I'm trying to say. Like,
no, I get
the vibe is way different, and I thought that was super sick, and it really nailed home like the vibe of the movie of like, yes, the protagonist feels bad for this, but like they shouldn't have been in that situation to begin with, and like that's just kind of what life is. Just like how Godzilla shouldn't have been here to begin with, but like that's just what it is.
That's just where we're at right now.
Yeah.
No, there's
somebody has to do it.
Yeah. You're definitely. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ian.
Oh, just to say, love that take. Absolutely agree.
Yeah,
100%.
And the professor having that like big moment, and oh man, but also to complement the people acting out that scene, I think so emotive. But absolutely agree with you. I think that hits the theme so well, man. Well said.
There's a guy in that scene. Well, you know, let me say the serious thing first before I say the funny thing. The scene, I love that scene. I love pretty much, and at that point, it's like this is the point of the movie. Like we're gonna like is to take human life seriously and to build a future for like the next generation. Our fight now is not for us. It's not for it sort of is, but it's not for us to like win something or to be prosper. It's to make sure there's a tomorrow that's worth living for the next generation, which is like kind of punctuated by the following scene of telling the kid, no, you're not coming with us. We're gonna fix our own, and then doing the hero walk, we're gonna fix our own issues and like type that. But I really appreciated that scene. I liked it a lot. There's a moment in that scene where to everyone's, again, credit to everyone acting in that scene. There's a guy eating like I think like a sandwich or something that I couldn't take my eyes off. Just taking a pause, and he looks so sad, like, and so dour. Like as the scene's going, he's like, yeah, this is some really heavy stuff. But at the same time, he's the only one holding this like big sandwich in his hand. And I don't know what that's about, but that like that was like eyeballing me. I couldn't stop taking it, like looking at him.
Oh, that's a big sandwich.
When the movie came. That just means he was a good extra, is what that.
Yeah,
exactly right. That's
or
exactly
bad
right.
If he was drawing focus, but
but yeah, and then that leading to the main character sending out his message to the mechanic.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I like the mechanic like just bashing him. Just
Tying
why
him
the
up
fuck are you telling me I'm the problem?
Yeah.
It's a great. Oh, go ahead.
I think that was after Noriko pushed him and stuff. I think the actor did a great job. The protagonist actor did a great job of like the descent of like mental health at that point. Because you could tell, like, in all their scenes, their eyes were, like, wide open. They looked manic almost. Of, like, I knew this would get you to come here. I need you. You know what I mean? And, like, just because at that point, like, they were having nightmares nonstop. Nariko was the only person that was holding them together. And then when they were gone, it was like, I'm just going to fly this plane into Godzilla. I just need the mechanic because they're the one that can do this for me. You know what I mean? At that point, they're, like, looking for, like, death at that point. You know what I mean?
Yeah, to the point where he's so blinded that he's abandoning the child he's been taking care of, the child that calls him dad. And
exactly.
And is again so blinded by it, and he's doing the bare minimum to take care of that child after he does this like self mission or whatever, by sending him with sending her with Sumiko with just all the cash they had before. Like, whereas like, no, if you really cared for this child, you're gonna be taking care of them after, and you're going to be building a future for them, not fulfilling your own like weird selfish desire at that point. Because it's at that point there's no honor to be gained, there's no like heroics are to be gained. People will probably be super like, people aren't going to view you as that like after. This is solely for you.
For Koichi at that point in the movie, I think like what I as you guys mentioned, like in the meeting just before, where Professor is saying we need to protect all the lives we can, we need to bring in etc. and all that, he is clearly like disintegrating, and in every scene like you can see him basically like disassociate, like staring off into the distance, because he is internally like, I have to die, my death is the only thing that will make things right, essentially. But I do think that him reaching out to the mechanic from Odo, in a sense, is kind of the thing that does like help him for that final getting over the hump, getting past that, and understand and taking in what everybody around him has been saying, you know, which is, you've got a woman who loves you and you've got a child who depends on you. You need to like get with where you are right now. But I think after that confrontation and getting the shit beat out of him, but it was because he's also to a degree looking for like forgiveness from the shame of, that was the first person to say, oh, I didn't see anything wrong with your plane, man. So you know, so I think there's a degree to him like still looking for that approval, that like, I have done the right thing by the nation or the people around me, or however you want to take that. But like, oh my god, what a great transition to have that build out eventually. Like we mentioned, there's a thing right behind your seat, by the way.
There. Which, by the way, I get, okay, so I know it works well with the movie, the vibe of not like camera pulling out, not hearing what they're saying about the ejection. But also at the same time, I feel like it was so like obvious that
it was telegraphed. Yes.
But maybe that was me. I don't know how y'all felt that.
Oh, dude, I don't honestly. I was completely surprised.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm dumb, but I was just like,
no.
They're just. I saw the panning out, and I was like, oh, they're they just talking their business. All right, cool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
If anything, it's just me knowing how movies work too much. Like, it's just like, oh, as soon as he put the hand on the seat, I'm like, oh, that's gonna be an injection.
Same. Sorry.
Yeah, for me, I just thought, okay, you know, he's just like, hey man, that's how the plane works, you know, like you got a gun on it, be careful.
It's gonna be a giant bomb that says -1.
Yeah. I don't know if you looked at this thing, but there's like a bunch of buttons and levers.
Yeah.
You should try pulling them sometime.
Yeah, and I guess for someone like me who's not as big of a film buff, I'll admit, a bit of it was just like the context to it was like, this is a brand new plane you've never flown before. So I thought they were trying to show off like, okay, or I guess in the moment I thought they were trying to show off, oh, here's like all the things that are different, and there's like a lot of like, I assume, talking points that needed to happen. And I thought they were just like, you know, sometimes like you know, Blade Runner, they'll be like, what is your name? And they'll like pause because the scene's so beautiful for like 10 hours, and they're like, my name is Jeff. So I thought it was one of those like film people moments. You know,
just look at this pretty thing we made. Like, just
exactly. Look at this hanger. How much money we spent on this set?
Yeah, so that's a lot. This costs more than the last scene. Like, I'm sorry, Ian. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say that's good though. That means the movie worked. So I'm glad.
No,
that's
absolutely. Good. That's what that
means. This just means that Chris is a writer and Ian's a writer.
Yeah, that's and we think way too much about it. It's
you know.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was gonna say, like, for me, I was kind of leaning that it was the ejector seat, but at the same time, I was like, I don't know. Yeah, I didn't want to assume like where it was gonna go, but yeah, thinking about what the main character's story is, then it would make sense to be the ejector seat. And to be, I was like, what else could it be? Like, what, a bomb? Like another one? Like,
it's two bombs. Because this bomb doesn't go off, it's the other bomb.
As a writer watching the movie, I definitely did think like, wow, this movie would be really like going back on its promise. Because like so much of what happens in the movie leading up to it is like, human life is valuable and we need to find a way to protect it and, you know, do right by each other. To end the movie with, but that one guy did need to fucking die. It's a bad way to end
I made
that.
this whole movie to be like there is an exception, like to the rule.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm looking at time right now. So I'm gonna move us
go
to
for it.
like 2 other scenes.
Okay.
Just real the actual killing of Godzilla, and then we'll go into the ending.
Okay.
For that, how'd you all feel about that? The boats moving in the water and everything.
Real quick,
Yeah.
if I could start,
absolutely.
another premiere nugget from
Yeah.
being there. The lead actor said that back in Japan, like he made this. I don't know. They were like very like, I need to drive this home point.
Yeah.
They were like, yeah, everyone back in Japan was like, oh, the director's so good at visual effects. They did an amazing job on the water. He's like, you know how hard I worked in the ocean to get those shots? Like, no, that's real water.
It looks
sucks.
real.
Yeah, but I guess all their friends in Japan were like, oh, that's so cool. You guys did like the visual effects with the splashing. So yeah, the boats were actually in the water in case.
Hell yeah.
Doing the honor of the lead actor, just so you all know. Which I think we did. But yeah.
That's
all I want to say. Go for it, Nick.
Okay.
Yeah, like man, in that regard, like I think that was like the hardest I popped off in the movie was like the boats showing up, because it is that
the Gurren Lagann.
Again, it's literally the anime moment of like all your friends, everyone's here to help. But it always works. It always works on me. I'm a sucker for that.
Yeah, no, same here.
Like
okay.
I would say the example I can think of that, the closest I can think of is in Cosmic. Kid Cosmic has that.
Where all his old together to help him. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
But it also has that amount of satisfaction just seeing everyone. For me. But yeah, like that. Yeah, I think the way they did this, I liked. At least in general, I liked a lot more than Shin Godzilla.
Okay.
But yeah, just doing that, and then like Godzilla dropping, and then how it technically worked, but then they have the backup plan, and then that doesn't work, and then
he looks so gnarly when he comes out of the water too.
Man, and it regens,
destroyed, like regenning.
Oh, yeah, we never talked about Godzilla regens like really good,
really
fast. Really fast. Like
the first time we see his half of his face blown off in that earlier boat scene, like I loved that shot where we get
so cool.
I love how like they do the whole reaction where like their face looks like they died, and then they just like
they
just come back to life, and it's like, oh shit.
What's that remind me of? Isn't there a movie where like someone gets shot in the head and like they come back, like they get reeled back and then come forward and it like heals up? It might have been some vampire movie. It might have been like Blade or something.
Like Terminator? Or?
Terminator.
Terminator.
Got it. Okay.
You know what's the one other place I've seen it super random? You ever seen the SpongeBob anime thing?
Yes.
There's a point in the scene where the the pickles guy throws something at SpongeBob and he gets hit and he just keeps walking forward in the YouTube video. It's so fun. I don't know.
No, it works. It's sick. It's always sick.
Yeah.
Like
just
adds just this wall coming at you. Dude, and you're feeling like real dread as like he's out of the water and he's gearing up for that beam, because you've seen it like so much now. They're like, this is so bad. What's about to happen?
And all the characters are there, like just like, well, this is it. You know what I mean? Like we knew this could happen, and we signed up for this, so like ain't nothing we can do now.
No.
I also for the first heat ray, I thought it was one part of me like made me angry, but also happy that I know why they did this, because I like the intensity it brought. But the heat ray that time, Godzilla was taking their time. They're like, well, I'm really charging this one up.
Yeah,
all the other ones, it was like they charge, boom. This one, it was like charging. And the dude was like, all right, I'm gonna press the button.
Yes.
I'm gonna press the button.
EPC time.
Something happened.
Yeah, you guys aren't ready for this. You guys aren't ready.
Just go kill them already. Like,
great.
I get. So I will say it works really well in those D-box seats, man. Where it's
you're shaking.
Oh my god, it's nuts. Oh, I before we leave the Godzilla death scene,
Yep.
I do want to say the kids like I keep calling him the kid because that's what they call him in the movie. I don't know what his actual name is.
Yeah.
His whole arc coming back, I like that it kind of implies like, well, the future generation has to be part of the fixing as well, like the building for the future.
Oh,
They're going to be
that's
living it.
smart. Yeah.
Yeah, they're going to be living it as well. Like they need a say into it. It can't just be adults who caused the problem have to fix their own shit.
Yeah.
Like if you're not going to be around for the solution after, right?
Mhm.
That's true. Yeah.
That's kind of how I really liked. So that's why I really liked him coming to that bit.
Yeah.
It reminds me of a different thing, but I don't want to distract us too much.
I'd love to ask Aaron, just up to the scene where Godzilla has resurfaced. We've done all that. We've got the tugboats. We've got that, and you see, you can see Koichi's plane coming in.
Yeah.
How are you feeling in that scene? Like,
Yeah.
are you like, oh no, he's actually gonna do it? What? How? Because like it is a great scene. It's shot really well. Tension of that explosion is amazing.
Yeah.
Again, the
I agree.
pause
So-
right before the explosion like just adds so much impact.
Yeah.
Exactly. Beautiful.
Yeah.
So I was going into that scene, like I said, like, oh, this is how it's gonna go. And so to your point about the writing, honestly, the whole movie, in a weird way, I was like, please just somebody let this guy die. Like they just need to they want to go. Like, you know what I mean? Like give them the satisfaction of death that they've been chasing after. So when I saw that, I was like, thank you. You know, like it's sad, but I'm like, the dude finally got what he wanted. Like, you know what I mean? Like he got what like he needed, and like he did it in a way that was like noble. You know what I mean? Like
for sure.
Just like that release of regret, I'm sure it was like, oh, So I was like, oh, like as much as I was like, damn, they died, but like it is what it is. You know what I mean? You gotta handle your business, man. Like just all that trauma released. You know what I mean? I like it was like almost like in a happy way. But then when the explosion happens and it shows him in the parachute, I was like, oh, go, dude, let's go.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Popping off champagne bottles. I think the crowd like clapped and was like,
yeah, our crowd clapped too.
Yeah. That got a clap out of these jaded people. I saw that we could talk about that.
Well, how could you not, man? Like that whole scene is like shot so well and like and just such a satisfying like conclusion to his arc like throughout the entire movie.
Yeah. I also like that in that like split second, Godzilla looks a little goofy, like what's this in my mouth?
Yeah, I know. It's literally a plane and Godzilla's like
he's like, oops.
But it's so it was rad. It's so cool. I'm sorry, Nick. I think you were about to say something.
No, I'd say like I think right before that, like the music track for it, it's just like everything coming together, and how that kind of like does a cool transition to like the third version of Godzilla's like theme. Because there's three, and then so the one that plays when they're on the boats is the final version, and then the choir kicks in from the main character's theme. So that was really dope. And you know what? Like, God, it's just like the shot of Godzilla with half a head is so good.
Yeah, it's so good. It's
when he falls. Oh, like, but like to your guys' point of having this sort of ending of the main character like choosing to live and choosing like to use that ejector seat. I do. I will say like kind of like with Aaron, there was that part of me of like thinking, oh, his arc is gonna be like he's gonna go through with it.
Okay.
And it's gonna like it will definitely cause issues with his family and then with his friends. But if that's how they want to go, then that is its own message in a way.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, but the ejector seat, I think it definitely ends up paying off a lot more.
God, I agree.
That
is 100% the right way. I mean, not that there is one right way, but like I thought, to your point, Nick, like the ejector seat was like the goated ending.
Yeah.
Like S tier ending. Yeah, S tier way.
Absolutely. I think it was the
yeah.
most effective thing they could have done for like
Yeah.
the story.
Especially after us having this discussion, I
Mhm.
1000% agree. Especially with all the themes of like the future y'all are bringing up and stuff like
Mhm.
that, which I really appreciate y'all doing. Yeah, I think 100%. That's the way.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I totally agree. Okay, I'm gonna try to rapidly. Anything about the ending? Meeting up with Noriko at
Yeah,
the.
that was. Oh man, that was so sick. I think my girlfriend was crying next to me when Noriko was like, "Is your war finally over?" I was like, "Yo!"
No, and then she's doing like a Rei Ayanami reference with the eye covered and
Yeah,
the
exactly.
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah,
"Yo, dude."
so
And
but
she
yeah,
looks,
that's it.
and she looks like, all things considered, like
great.
pretty good for someone who was in like
Got hit with the building, yeah.
Yeah.
The was beautifully acted, such a good performance. I did notice when she holds him and he's like, on the side of the bed, she's got like this little millipede burn on the back of her neck from
Yeah,
Yeah,
and like the idea of man, the radiation, it sticks with you. Like
Mhm.
even people who
Mhm.
didn't die in that moment were like, it whatever happened lived with them. And I was like, what a beautiful way to express that, to put that in the context of these two people are going to live whatever life they have left. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
yeah.
love that.
You know what's funny? Me and my girlfriend both thought that was like, oh, she got infected with Godzilla, and now she's gonna become
Yeah,
Godzilla in a few years.
I'll be
Like
real.
her
I
evil
also thought
anime
that.
arc, yeah. Okay, yeah. Thanks for explaining that,
Yes,
because this
too.
whole time
Yeah.
I was like, okay, she's gonna transform into Godzilla
I
Jr.
like that.
Godzilla
Wait,
too.
That's way more meaningful.
if next
Godzilla
time
Zero.
a bunch of
Oh,
Godzilla
yeah.
zombies, they all have little laser breath, I would watch
Oh,
that.
that's sick.
I would,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is where my like jaded, cynical mind went with. She said, "Is your war over?" One great line, yes, absolutely. But I thought that was like this, also like her jabbing at the dude, like, "Are you done? You fucking,
Are you done?
we good?
Yeah.
You got what you needed?
you feel big and
Yeah.
strong now.
You feel
Yeah.
better now? I've been here, and that's and that's
You didn't even bother to look if I was okay. You didn't even bother to ask.
I know, that's the thing. No, it's a good line. It's a beautiful
great.
line. It
Yeah.
got me choked up. Um,
Mm.
okay, so let's move on. Gonna try to take this a little quick. So, falling action.
Mm.
What's y'all's big takeaway from this? What'd you get out of it? You know the question.
Oh, in terms of themes or like just what I think of the movie in general?
Both. Yeah, we can do both. Yeah.
Yeah. Y'all go first because I have to think about this. I'm sorry.
All right, I'll go. Real quick to kind of give an example.
Mm.
As for the movie, I love this movie. It's one of my favorite. It's not one of my favorite Godzilla movies. I like waiting like a year or something, um, to kind of like rank stuff. Just to, I want to see how it passed like tests, right? Like for me, like how long after the movie am I thinking about it? Compared to other ones. Don't want like any recency bias, although that's like kind of impossible as you get older. But it's up there, man. There's parts of it I like a lot more than Shin Godzilla, especially the humans. The human story I love way more than Shin Godzilla, and I loved Shin Godzilla's human story.
Yeah.
I love Godzilla and all of this. I'm a sucker for anti-war war movies, if that makes sense. Stuff like like
Totally.
I think like Metal Gear, or like Saving Private Ryan was a very early experience for me, for that. And then yeah, so it's up there for that. As for the themes, I think we kind of touched upon it. It reminds me of this very wonderful part in Disco Elysium. It's a part I still think about like to this day, even though I haven't beaten it quite yet 'cause it's so long, but played it a long time ago. And there's this line where, as a detective, you're meeting this girl who's recording like breaking ice underwater.
Oh,
She's
yeah.
sticking a mic into the water and recording that. She's gathering sound files to make her own music. And she's having not a great time with it because you see this other crowd who are just into partying and listening to loud music, but aren't like making music. That type of thing. She's the only like artist, quote unquote, like in the gang. And she seems defeated. Like she seems like, I don't know why I'm doing this. No one else seems to kind of get what I'm going for. And she tosses the recording device aside, and you as a detective can pick it up. And if you pick it up and hand it back to her, detective gives this line of in this very like poor, like rundown city, we adults have not set up a great world for you guys. We've created this, we've led to what's going on in the city, and now you're living in it, and we can't ever make up for it, but we can try to make it better tomorrow for you. As for you, I would just hold on to these little things that make you happy, because that's what's going to keep you going in this life, and will lead into something probably better than anything we could have provided you. And that line always like gets me. Yeah, that's a line I think about a lot. Beautiful line, and one of any in that game. But it reminds me of that, just this future you're trying to establish for other people, but they also have to be part of it, which is why I like that kid's like art a lot. That's what I got out of it. What, like, better future. We have to fix. We have to fix our stuff, but also allow you to rebuild with us, if not lead the way. But that was my thing. Very heavy for a Godzilla story, and they really like it.
It's probably the heaviest, I think, out of all of them.
What'd you all get, Nick and Ian?
Oh, do you want to go, Ian?
Sure. I got out of it. I would agree. I think it's one of the more heavy films that we've seen. It's what I honestly love about it, though, is it's so grounded that the characters are. These are maybe the most fleshed out characters I've seen in a Godzilla movie, and I would say that even more. Than what our last viewing experience was. As good as his work is, I do think he's got kind of like a little bit of the Fincher in him, like that coldness, that distance as a director.
Okay.
Yeah.
This director is so interpersonal, so human. It's painful in an amazing way. Like feels real. It feels honest. Like the scene of one of the great examples that I'm thinking about a lot is where the little girl remind me the little girl that Koichi is taking care of calls him daddy, and he corrects her, like just very corrects her. No, I'm not. That's not the case.
With the guy immediately going, "What the fuck are you doing that for?"
What is wrong with you? She's like 2.
Yeah.
but the kind of but then to kind of build out and understand, like, oh, Koichi does absolutely feel very strongly, is apparent to her, knows he is, but he's kind of punishing himself, and in a sense then thereby accidentally punishing everyone around him by not allowing himself these relationships, by saying, I'm not complete, I can't be a husband, I can't be a father, I can't be anything until I finish this death need inside of me. Like, brutal, but it's so well performed, and those characters in that little tiny house that they live in, it's some of the best stuff. I love it. I'll take away that theme of like building out family. I'm a sucker for that kind of shit. I love that.
Hell yeah.
You, man.
What about you guys?
Like for myself, like, from a viewing standpoint, on top of all the themes and everything we talked about story wise, it's definitely interesting now to, like, the most recent Godzilla films have been going this general direction of like having it be about like what is the future going to be for us, like, and what is like, and having everyone sort of come together to kind of challenge, well, both like find some like peace, but then also like sort of challenge that the kind of the old ways and all that. And I thought that was really cool, like especially with -1 being like, it's all our efforts. Like it's not just one group has to deal with this while we do our thing. I do really respect that for the film. And yeah, to Ian's point about like that's kind of sad how I feel with Ano sometimes is it does seem like some of the characters are kind of just there. There's nothing wrong with, but yeah, like there is some kind of coldness that I didn't realize was there until this film. This is like the most likable cast to me. This is like the most likable cast of characters for this kind of film like I've ever seen. So I think that's probably like one of the main reasons. It is probably like my favorite Godzilla film. Just for that reason, because because even like as much as I really love a lot of Heisen era stuff, there is like that kind of distant thing. You gotta be like, I'm kind of more into the action than the characters. But with -1 and Shen, like you're really sitting with these characters and like that is the story, and I thought that was really cool. But that's what I got of it.
And that's not to take away at all from the Godzilla scenes, which are just like fucking 10 out of 10 every time he does something. It's like amazing.
Some of the best ever, man.
What'd you get out of it?
Yeah, so after thinking about it a bunch, the thing that keeps sitting in my brain is honestly, I think I have the same opinion as Ian. A lot of what I'm thinking is just a lot of like trauma, how that affects your relationships in your life, and how that gets resolved in various ways. For like the main character, a lot of it was like, finally being able to like put themselves within death's distance, but then also accomplish a goal. You know what I mean? Like the same with the mining mission and stuff like that. How it affects Noriko, how it affects the child. Absolutely. Like a lot of this is just that, and like the mechanic, even like, you know what I mean? Everyone in this movie had some like unresolved trauma, and it's about them coming together to like really solve that trauma more than fight Godzilla to some degree, which I thought was like a really interesting way to propose that. And what's funny too, so another point is I agree, probably one of the most likable casts. If I had to do it out of 5, I'd probably give this one like a 4 out of 5, 4.5 out of 5. Definitely an S tier Godzilla. And the last point I'll make, again, I hope I'm not like flexing Premiere stuff too much, but
no, please.
I want to hear like everything.
Okay, cool.
I would do
one
the
of the
exact
other
same thing.
Sick. One of the other Q&A things is I think someone asked the director, like, why do you think people like Godzilla so much? And especially from the concept of like, why did you make a really brutal horror Godzilla out of like, you could have done Final Wars, but you chose to do horror OG Godzilla. And their point was like, I feel like a lot of times people go, especially nowadays, go through so much terrible things in their life. And I think Godzilla is just a way for us to project the terribleness out of ourselves onto this creature. And you usually come out of a Godzilla movie feeling like grateful for life and stuff like that, because you just saw a bunch of people get destroyed by a giant monster. So it makes you more thankful for the situation and lets you like remove yourself from all these like bad experiences you're going through or have gone through to some degree. So he sees Godzilla as like an escape for that, and I think it reflects within the movie of how Godzilla becomes this escape for all these war veterans to like get that out of their system and like go finally live their lives. So it's like a full circle thing.
Absolutely.
Wow.
I 100% agree, especially like I think you mentioned earlier, just the size of Godzilla, again, insurmountable force that you have to overcome. Like I'm sure a lot of people, if not everyone, can relate to some moment in their life where they've had to overcome something that big, and it's satisfying. It's always, and once you've done it, seeing other people do it feels really good, like, and just like really pumps you up, But
exactly.
Absolutely. Okay, let's go into the ending or the denouement of the podcast. Anything you all would like to recommend to listeners, watchers, anyone who checks us out, our humble podcast? What if they liked Godzilla -1? What would you all recommend to them to check out?
I'll go first. Again, I'm
No worries,
I don't
man.
watch
No worries at all. I would recommend go check out other Godzilla podcasts because to check out any Godzilla movies. But I feel like we've been doing that with the other stuff, so I'm gonna go out on the limb here. I'm gonna go. I had mentioned Dan Carlin's Hardcore History. It's a very long podcast commitment, so don't feel like you're gonna finish all in one day because I don't think you can even. But Supernova in the East is what it's called. I think it's free now. It used to be paid, but I think on his website you can get it all for free because that's how I got it.
Yeah.
Talks about the Pacific Theater in during World War II and everything that leads up to the atomic blast, the aftermath, sections on kamikaze pilots, everything that has to do. It's both thorough, but like as you're hearing it all, he gives you these resources, and you realize there's so much to this war that you could spend forever. That literally people dedicate their entire lives just talking about, like, or researching everything that led into it, the impact it had on people.
Mm-hmm.
For just context, because they do reference some stuff in there. And two, another just out there, I would recommend like any media where people are dealing with like a hard situation, making the best of it. I already talked about that Disco Elysium moment, so I'm going to mention that one. There's small moments all throughout that game where it's like that, where it's
Yeah.
this goofy, bonkers, just oh my god, train wreck of a person you're playing as, which is fun in its own right because you don't get to do that in video games. But and
Yeah.
then it gut punches you with these like moments of really deep insight that just hit you to your core and come out of nowhere. I'd recommend that. It's a real fun time with like these little sprinkled things. So I went kind of I was going kind of out there for that. But Ian, what would you recommend? Someone who liked Godzilla minus one.
If you liked Godzilla minus one, you might enjoy a film called His House.
Okay.
His House, which is it's kind of a horror movie about South Sudanese folks who moved to the UK. They're being moved as a part of like they're refugees essentially from this big political tumult that has happened. And then they move into a house where those who did not survive the migrant caravan are their souls are clinging on to their home. So it's a film very much tied with kind of a very real of the moment issue in the UK. It's got a social worker played by Matt Smith, who's like from Doctor Who.
Okay.
And it's really weird to see him be like in this adversarial position to these folks. So it's a horror movie that I think has a through line that it is very much playing off of and focused on the inner relationship between a married couple who are the two people who get this house and are then troubled by these ghosts. And it's a story that's very much focused on a real historic, you know, trauma that has to be dealt with through supernatural means, essentially. It was a really good movie, really strong. Yeah.
Right on. That sounds really good. I might check it. I'm gonna add that to the list of things I need to watch.
Yeah, same.
Nick, what would you recommend to everyone
All
who
right. So
like
first
Godzilla
off,
minus one?
like Godzilla minus one, and you like those special effects,
Mhm.
I would I would recommend a quick watch of the director's first video game directing, which was the opening to Onimusha 3.
Shut up! He did that?
He's a director for the
Yo, hang
opening
on.
CG for Onimusha 3. That's why it looks so fucking good. I'd recommend that.
How did I not catch that, dude?
To kind of see more of his style in general, I really liked how he did both visually and direct wise for Lupin the Third, the first. That's the CG one that came out recently. That looks really good, and like they definitely like nail the personality and styles of the characters in 3D. So I recommend those two for sure. Because his the other like anime live action ones he directed are pretty good, like the Parasite one or the Battleship Yamato was another one back in 2010. Yeah. But yeah, I would say that out of everything, those two I'd recommend just to see like just how good he is like with effects when he's just directing in that. But yeah,
I just want to say real quick because there's a reason I had such a strong reaction to finding that out. If y'all haven't seen the opening to Onimusha 3, one, it's really long, which is crazy for a PS2
Yeah.
game. It's like 8 minutes,
It's a short
8.5 minutes. It's a short
Good
film.
lord.
It's great, and
on a
when it
PS2.
came out, we rented the game once. I remember that. You see it for the first time on a PS2. It blew your mind. It was the best looking thing that I think games had come out with. That's I'm sorry. The and the rest of the game is okay. It's not the best Onimusha, but it's
No.
but that
But we
scene I could rewatch. Oh my god, it's so masterfully done, and it has giant monsters in it. Oh my god. Yeah, everyone go check out that. I would like to add that to my recommendation. Opening to Onimusha 3.
Oh, it's so good.
But yeah, Aaron, what would you like to recommend to everyone who like Godzilla Minus One?
Yeah, so I just saved Onimusha -3 in a pinned tab.
Hell yeah, it's good.
But honestly, again, I'm not like a super huge film buff, so I'm
Okay.
blanking on that. But
Okay.
one thing that's super random that I've come across through like doing Groovy Kaiju stuff, because sometimes you're like, you like kaijus? Here's everything about kaiju. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
One of the most clutch things, dude. Godzilla has a YouTube channel that like is sometimes random Japanese announcements, but they do a bunch of Godzilla monster fights, like really fleshed out
they
short
do.
films.
Yeah.
I would subscribe. I would like and subscribe to their official Japanese YouTube channel because they just did one with Megalon. It's like
Yeah.
the same film style as -1, but it's like
Oh.
Godzilla fight, and there's a little like pre-dialogue and stuff. I'd highly recommend just
Hell yeah.
subscribe to the Japanese Godzilla YouTube channel.
Nice.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
And okay, I know I already added another recommendation. I'm gonna add one more. Before we watched Godzilla -1 to get us hyped up, we checked out those two Boss Coffee commercials for Godzilla.
Yeah.
I don't know if y'all seen that. There's the one that came out like for one of the legendary Godzillas where it's about the guy in the suit. And his whole thing. That man, that just makes you want to work so fucking hard at everything you do because like it's so beautifully shot. And then they released one for this movie for the anniversary of Godzilla for Godzilla Day, where it just takes you through all the Godzillas, but it's edited so well where it's overlapping
Like it's continuous
in each
shot,
movie,
yeah.
and it's as a continuous sequence. It's amazing. Go check that out. That's a minute. That's like both of them are like a minute long.
Sick.
Godzilla Boss Comic Verse. And with that, I think we can close it. I want to
one last thing.
Yeah.
I found the tickets if y'all want to see them real quick.
Hell yeah! So
Oh.
oh my god,
Yeah,
we gotta get that.
So it's like this big rectangle square.
Wow.
For people listening, the top starts with Toho logo, a picture of Godzilla from the -1 style, giant Godzilla -1 written in blood, and then just Friday, November 10th, Director Guilds of America, all that right there. So yeah,
cool,
so if y'all wanted to see
Wow.
what that looked like, boom, I gotta frame them.
You
That
gotta
is a
get
flex.
framed or like a shadow box so you can see both sides. Like,
Yeah.
oh my god,
Man.
oh dude, that is rad. That's so fucking cool.
Jesus.
I don't want to hold it up, but yeah, go for it.
Absolutely. Before we take off, I would like to thank Aaron, aka Groovy Kaiju, for joining us today for our first guest appearance on this new endeavor we're
Hell yeah.
doing.
Hell
So
yeah.
thank you very
I
much.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. We've loved his music for a long time. And in fact, he just released a new album called Groovin' Through the Galaxy.
Yeah.
It's a concept album, which by the way, I've talked about my like prog rock history on here because I used to be really into prog rock in high school, so I listened to a lot of concept albums, 2112 being one of my favorites. I think this album's amazing. I think y'all should check it out.
Thank you.
I think it's
awesome.
I think the interlacing of the story is great. It's simple yet goes places, and it talks about really deep themes. I don't want to spoil too much.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
Cool.
it's
coming from like a professional writer is like, thank you.
Oh, I wouldn't call myself
No, yes, you are, Chris. Stay humble.
I appreciate that.
I'll tell you about
But it's an amazing album, and the songs are fucking fire. Like that's been on I work in a kitchen, and that's been on the playlist. So you know it's good stuff when it makes the kitchen playlist. You know.
And where can everyone hear all that fine new music?
I would just groovykaiju.com. I have links to everything. There will be a billion links to any service you like to use.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. The music's been really good, man. Like, this is up there. Yeah, and with that, I think I can hit the stop on the recording button.
Oh,
so goodbye, everybody, because I don't know a good sign off yet.
Later.